The LGM-30 Minuteman is a U.S. land-based intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, in service with the Air Force Global Strike Command. As of 2017, the LGM-30G Minuteman III version is the only land-based ICBM in service in the United States. Development of the Minuteman began in the mid-1950s as the outgrowth of basic research into solid-fuel rocket motors, which indicated an ICBM based on solids was possible. Such a missile could stand ready for extended periods of time with little maintenance, and then launch on command. In comparison, existing U.S. missile designs using liquid rocket propellant required a lengthy fueling process immediately before launch, which left them open to the possibility of surprise attack. This potential for immediate launch gave the missile its name. Like the Revolutionary War's Minutemen, the Minuteman was designed to be launched on a moment's notice. Minuteman entered service in 1962 as a weapon tasked primarily with the deterrence role, threatening Soviet cities with a second strike counter-value counterattack if the U.S. was attacked. However, the development of the U.S. Navy's Polaris missile, which addressed the same role, allowed the Air Force to modify Minuteman into a weapon with much greater accuracy, with the specific intent of allowing it to attack hardened military targets, including Soviet missile silos. The Minuteman II entered service in 1965 with a host of upgrades to improve its accuracy and survivability in the face of an anti-ballistic missile, ABM, system the Soviets were known to be developing. Minuteman III followed in 1970, using 3 smaller warheads instead of one large one, which made it difficult to attack because the ABMs would have to hit all 3 widely separated warheads to be effective. Minuteman III was the first multiple independently targetable reentry vehicle, MIRV, ICBM to be deployed. Each missile can carry up to 3 thermonuclear weapons, which have a yield in the range of 300 to 500 kilotons. Peaking at 1,000 missiles in the 1970s, the current U.S. force consists of 399 Minuteman III missiles as of September 2017, deployed in missile silos around Malmstrom AFB, Montana, Minot AFB, North Dakota, and F.E. Warren AFB, Wyoming. The Air Force plans to keep the missile in service until at least 2030. It is one component of the U.S. nuclear triad, the other 2 parts of the triad being the Trident submarine-launched ballistic missile, SLBM, and nuclear weapons carried by long-range strategic bombers. History. Edward Hall and solid fuels. Minuteman owes its existence largely to the efforts of then Air Force Colonel Edward N. Hall. In 1956, Hall was put in charge of the Solid Fuel Propulsion Division of General Schriever's Western Development Division, which had originally been formed to lead development of the Atlas and Titan ICBMs. Solid fuels were already commonly used in rockets, but strictly for short-range uses. Hall's superiors were interested in short and medium-range missiles with solids, especially for use in Europe, where the fast reaction time was an advantage for a system that might be attacked by Soviet aircraft. But Hall was convinced that they could be used for a true ICBM with 5,500 nautical miles, 10,200 kilometers, 6,300 miles, range. To achieve the required energy, that year Hall began funding research at Boeing and Thiokol into the use of ammonium perchlorate composite propellant. Adapting a concept developed in the UK, they cast the fuel into large cylinders with a star-shaped hole running along the inner axis. This allowed the fuel to burn along the entire length of the cylinder, rather than just the end as in earlier designs. The increased burn rate meant increased thrust. This also meant the heat was spread across the entire motor, instead of the end, and because it burned from the inside out, it did not reach the wall of the missile fuselage until the fuel was finished burning. In comparison, older designs burned primarily from one end to the other, meaning that at any instant one small section of the fuselage was being subject to extreme loads and temperatures. Guidance of an ICBM is based not only on the direction the missile is traveling, but the precise instant that thrust is cut off. Too much thrust and the warhead will overshoot its target, too little and it will fall short. Solids are normally very hard to predict in terms of burning time and their instantaneous thrust during the burn, which made them questionable for the sort of accuracy required to hit a target at intercontinental range. This appeared at first to be an insurmountable problem, but in the end was solved in almost trivial fashion. A series of ports were added inside the rocket nozzle that were opened when the guidance systems called for engine cut-off. The reduction in pressure was so abrupt that the last burning fuel ejected itself and the flame was snuffed out. The first to make use of these developments was not the Air Force, but the Navy. They had been involved in a joint program with the U.S. Army to develop the liquid-fueled Jupiter missile, but had always been skeptical of the system. They felt that liquid fuels were too dangerous to use on board ships, and especially submarines. Rapid success in the solids development program, combined with Edward Teller's promise of much lighter nuclear warheads during Project Nobska, led the Navy to abandon Jupiter and begin development of a solid fuel missile of their own. Aerojet's work with Hall would be adapted for their Polaris missile starting in December 1956. Missile farm concept. The Air Force, however, saw no pressing need for a solid fuel ICBM. SM-65 Atlas and SM-68 Titan ICBMs were progressing, and storable liquids were being developed that would allow the missiles to be left in a ready-to-shoot form for extended periods. But Hall saw solid fuels not only as a way to improve launch times or safety, but part of a radical plan to greatly reduce the cost of ICBMs so that thousands could be built. He was aware that new computerized assembly lines would allow continual production, and that similar equipment would allow a small team to oversee operations for dozens or hundreds of missiles. A solid fuel design would be much simpler to build, and easier to maintain in service. Hall's ultimate plan was to build a number of integrated missile farms that included factories, missile silos, transport, and even recycling. Each farm would support between 1,000 and 1,500 missiles being produced in a continual low-rate cycle. Systems in the missiles would detect failures, at which point it would be removed and recycled, while a newly built missile was put into the silo. The missile design itself was based purely on lowest possible cost, reducing its size and complexity because the basis of the weapon's merit was its low cost per completed mission. All other factors, accuracy, vulnerability, and reliability, were secondary. Hall's plan did not go unopposed, especially by the more established names in the ICBM field. Ramo Wooldridge pressed for a system with higher accuracy, but Hall countered that the missile's role was to attack Soviet cities, and that a force which provides numerical superiority over the enemy will provide a much stronger deterrent than a numerically inferior force of greater accuracy. Hall was known for his friction with others, and in 1958 Schriever removed him from the Minuteman project and sent him to the UK to oversee deployment of the Thor IRBM. On his return to the US in 1959, Hall retired from the Air Force, but received his second Legion of Merit in 1960 for his work on solid fuels. Although he was removed from the Minuteman project, Hall's work on cost reduction had already produced a new design of 71 inches, 1.8 m, diameter, much smaller than the Atlas and Titan at 120 inches, 3.0 m, which would mean much smaller and cheaper silos. Hall's goal of dramatic cost reduction was a success, although many of the other concepts of his missile farm were abandoned. Guidance system. Previous long-range missiles used liquid fuels that could only be loaded just prior to firing. The loading process took from 30 to 60 minutes in typical designs. Although lengthy, this was not considered to be a problem at the time, because it took about the same amount of time to spin up the inertial guidance system, set the initial position, and program in the target coordinates. Minuteman was designed from the outset to be launched in minutes. While solid fuel eliminated the fueling delays, the delays in starting and aligning the guidance system remained. For quick launch, the guidance system would have to be kept running and aligned at all times, which was a serious problem for the mechanical systems, especially the gyroscopes which used ball bearings. Autonetics had an experimental design using air bearings that they claimed had been running continually from 1952 to 1957. Autonetics further advanced the state-of-the-art by building the platform in the form of a ball which could rotate in two directions. Conventional solutions used a shaft with ball bearings at either end that allowed it to rotate around a single axis only. This meant that only 2 gyros would be needed for the inertial platform, instead of the typical 3. The last major advance was to use a general-purpose digital computer in place of the analog or custom-designed digital computers. Previous missile designs normally used two single-purpose computers. One ran the autopilot that kept the missile flying along a programmed course, and the second compared the information from the inertial platform to the target coordinates and sent any needed corrections to the autopilot. To reduce the total number of parts used in Minuteman, a single faster computer was used, running separate routines for these functions. Since the guidance computer would be inactive while the missile sat in the silo, the same computer was also used to run a program that monitored the various sensors and test equipment. With older designs, this had been handled by external systems, requiring miles of extra wiring and many connectors. In order to store multiple programs, the computer, the D-17B, was built in the form of a drum machine but used a hard disk in place of the drum. Building a computer with the required performance, size, and weight demanded the use of transistors, which were at that time very expensive and not very reliable. Earlier efforts to use transistorized computers for guidance, BINOC, and the system on the SM-64 Navajo, had failed and were abandoned. The Air Force and Autonetics spent millions on a program to improve transistor and component reliability 100 times, leading to the Minuteman Hi-Rel parts specifications. The techniques developed during this program were equally useful for improving all transistor construction, and greatly reduced the failure rate of transistor production lines in general. This improved yield, which had the effect of greatly lowering production costs, and had enormous spin-off effects in the electronics industry. Using a general-purpose computer also had long-lasting effects on the Minuteman program, and the US nuclear stance in general. With Minuteman, the targeting could be easily changed by loading new trajectory information into the computer's hard drive, a task that could be completed in a few hours. Earlier ICBM's custom-wired computers could attack a single target, whose precise trajectory information was hard-coded directly in the system's logic. Missile gap. In 1957, a series of intelligence reports suggested the Soviets were far ahead in the missile race and would be able to overwhelm the US by the early 1960s. It was later demonstrated that this missile gap was just as fictional as the bomber gap of a few years earlier, but through the late 1950s it was a serious concern. If the Soviets were building missiles in the numbers being predicted by the CIA and others within the defense establishment, by as early as 1961 they would have enough to attack all SAC and ICBM bases in the US in a single first strike. The Air Force responded by beginning research into survivable strategic missiles, starting the WS-199 program. Initially, this focused on air-launched ballistic missiles, which would be carried aboard aircraft flying far from the Soviet Union, and thus impossible to attack by either ICBM, because they were moving, or long-range interceptor aircraft, because they were too far away. In the shorter term, looking to rapidly increase the number of missiles in its force, Minuteman was given crash development status starting in September 1958. Advanced surveying of the potential silo sites had already begun in late 1957. Adding to their concerns was a Soviet anti-ballistic missile system which was known to be under development at Saryshagin. WS-199 was expanded to develop a maneuvering reentry vehicle, MARV, which greatly complicated the problem of shooting down a warhead. Two designs were tested in 1957, Alpha Draco and the Boost Glide reentry vehicle. These used long and skinny arrow-like shapes that provided aerodynamic lift in the high atmosphere, and could be fitted to existing missiles like Minuteman. The shape of these reentry vehicles required more room on the front of the missile than a traditional reentry vehicle design. To allow for this future expansion, the Minuteman silos were revised to be built 13 feet, 4.0 m, deeper. Although Minuteman would not deploy a boost glide warhead, the extra space proved invaluable in the future, as it allowed the missile to be extended and carry more fuel and payload. Polaris. During Minuteman's early development, the Air Force maintained the policy that the manned strategic bomber was the primary weapon of nuclear war. Blind bombing accuracy on the order of 1,500 feet, 0.46 kilometers, was expected, and the weapons were sized to ensure even the hardest targets would be destroyed as long as the weapon fell within this range. The U.S. Air Force had enough bombers to attack every military and industrial target in the USSR and was confident that its bombers would survive in great enough numbers that such a strike would utterly destroy the country. Soviet ICBMs upset this equation to a degree. Their accuracy was known to be low, on the order of 4 nautical miles, 7.4 kilometers, 4.6 miles, but they carried large warheads that would be useful against Strategic Air Command's bombers, which parked in the open. Since there was no system to detect the ICBMs being launched, the possibility was raised that the Soviets could launch a sneak attack with a few dozen missiles that would take out a significant portion of SAC's bomber fleet. In this environment, the Air Force saw their own ICBMs not as a primary weapon of war, but as a way to ensure that the Soviets would not risk a sneak attack. ICBMs, especially newer models that were housed in silos, could be expected to survive an attack by a single Soviet missile. In any conceivable scenario where both sides had similar numbers of ICBMs, the U.S. force would survive a sneak attack in sufficient numbers to ensure destruction of all major Soviet cities in return. The Soviets would not risk an attack under these conditions. Considering this counter-value attack concept, strategic planners calculated that an attack of 400 equivalent megatons aimed at the largest Soviet cities would promptly kill 30% of their population and destroy 50% of their industry. Larger attacks raised these numbers only slightly, as all of the larger targets would have already been hit. This suggested that there was a finite deterrent level around 400 megatons that would be enough to prevent a Soviet attack no matter how many missiles they had of their own. All that had to be ensured was that the U.S. missiles survived, which seemed likely given the low accuracy of the Soviet weapons. Reversing the problem, the addition of ICBMs to the U.S. Air Force's arsenal did not eliminate the need, or desire, to attack Soviet military targets, and the Air Force maintained that bombers were the only suitable platform in that role. This presented a serious problem for the Air Force. While still pressing for development of newer bombers, like the supersonic B-70, it appeared the counter-value role was served by the Navy's UGM-27 Polaris. Polaris had enough range that the submarines could roam open areas of the ocean, and would be essentially invulnerable to attack no matter how many missiles the Soviets had, or how accurate they were. Based on the same 400 equivalent megatons calculation, they set about building a fleet of 41 submarines carrying 16 missiles each, giving the Navy a finite deterrent that was unassailable. A February 1960 memo by RAND, entitled The Puzzle of Polaris, was passed around among high-ranking Air Force officials. It suggested that Polaris negated any need for Air Force ICBMs if they were also being aimed at Soviet cities. If the role of the missile was to present an unassailable threat to the Soviet population, Polaris was a far better solution than Minuteman. The document would have long-lasting effects on the future of the Minuteman program, which, by 1961, was firmly evolving towards a counter-force capability. Kennedy. Minuteman's final tests coincided with John F. Kennedy entering the White House. His new Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, was tasked with producing the world's best defense while limiting spending. McNamara began to apply cost-benefit analysis, and Minuteman's low production cost made its selection a foregone conclusion. Atlas and Titan were soon scrapped, and the storable liquid-fueled Titan II deployment was severely curtailed. McNamara also cancelled the B-70 bomber project. Minuteman's low cost had spin-off effects on non-ICBM programs. The Army's Nike Zeus, an interceptor missile capable of shooting down Soviet warheads, provided another way to prevent a sneak attack. This had initially been proposed as a way to defend the SAC bomber fleet. The Army argued that upgraded Soviet missiles might be able to attack U.S. missiles in their silos, and Zeus would be able to blunt such an attack. Zeus was expensive and the Air Force said it was more cost-effective to build another Minuteman missile. Given the large size and complexity of the Soviet liquid-fueled missiles, an ICBM building race was one the Soviets could not afford. Zeus was cancelled in 1963. Counter-force. Minuteman's selection as the primary Air Force ICBM was initially based on the same logic as their earlier missiles, that the weapon was primarily one designed to ride out any potential Soviet attack and ensure they would be hit in return. But Minuteman had a combination of features that led to its rapid evolution into the US's primary weapon of nuclear war. Chief among these qualities was its digital computer. This could be updated in the field with new targets and better information about the flight paths with relative ease, gaining accuracy for little cost. One of the unavoidable effects on the warhead's trajectory was the mass of the Earth, which is not even, and contains many mass concentrations that pull on the warhead. Through the 1960s, the Defense Mapping Agency, now part of National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, mapped these with increasing accuracy, feeding that information back into the Minuteman fleet. The Minuteman was deployed with a circular error probable, CEP, of about 1.1 nautical miles, 2.0 kilometers, 1.3 miles, but this had improved to about 0.6 nautical miles, 1.1 kilometers, 0.69 miles, by 1965. This was accomplished without any mechanical changes to the missile or its navigation system. At those levels, the ICBM begins to approach the manned bomber in terms of accuracy. A small upgrade, roughly doubling the accuracy of the INS, would give it the same 1,500 feet, 460 m, CEP as the manned bomber. Autonetics began such development even before the original Minuteman entered fleet service, and the Minuteman II had a CEP of 0.26 nautical miles, 0.48 kilometers, 0.30 miles. Additionally, the computers were upgraded with more memory, allowing them to store information for 8 targets, which the missile crews could select among almost instantly, greatly increasing their flexibility. From that point, Minuteman became the US's primary deterrent weapon, until its performance was matched by the Navy's Trident missile of the 1980s. Questions about the need for the manned bomber were quickly raised. The Air Force began to offer a number of reasons why the bomber offered value, in spite of costing more money to buy and being much more expensive to operate and maintain. Newer bombers with better survivability, like the B-70, cost many times more than the Minuteman, and, in spite of great efforts through the 1960s, became increasingly vulnerable to surface-to-air missiles. The B-1 of the early 1970s eventually emerged with a price tag around $200 million, equivalent to $500 million in 2016, while the Minuteman IIIs built during the 1970s cost only $7 million, $20 million in 2016. The Air Force countered that having a variety of platforms complicated the defense. If the Soviets built an effective anti-ballistic missile system of some sort, the ICBM and SLBM fleet might be rendered useless, while the bombers would remain. This became the nuclear triad concept, which survives into the present. Although this argument was successful, the number of manned bombers has been repeatedly cut and the deterrent role increasingly passed to missiles. Minuteman I, LGM-30A/B or SM-80/HSM-80A. Deployment. The LGM-30A Minuteman I was first test-fired on February 1, 1961, and entered into the Strategic Air Command's arsenal in 1962, at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. The improved LGM-30B became operational at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota, F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Wyoming, and Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri in 1963. All 800 Minuteman I missiles were delivered by June 1965. Each of the bases had 150 missiles emplaced. F.E. Warren AFB had 200 of the Minuteman IB missiles. Malmstrom AFB had 150 of the Minuteman I and about 5 years later added 50 of the Minuteman II similar to those installed at Grand Forks AFB, ND. Guidance. The Minuteman I Autonetics D-17 flight computer used a rotating air-bearing magnetic disc holding 2,560 cold-stored words in 20 tracks, write heads disabled after program fill, of 24 bits each and one alterable track of 128 words. The time for a D-17 disk revolution was 10 milliseconds. The D-17 also used a number of short loops for faster access of intermediate results storage. The D-17 computational minor cycle was 3 disk revolutions or 30 milliseconds. During that time all recurring computations were performed. For ground operations the inertial platform was aligned and gyro correction rates updated. During flight, filtered command outputs were sent by each minor cycle to the engine nozzles. Unlike modern computers, which use descendants of that technology for secondary storage on hard disk, the disk was the active computer memory. The disk storage was considered hardened to radiation from nearby nuclear explosions, making it an ideal storage medium. To improve computational speed, the D-17 borrowed an instruction look-ahead feature from the Autonetics-built Field Artillery Data Computer, M18 FADUC, that permitted simple instruction execution every word time. The D-37C guidance and control computers were used in Minuteman II missiles and contained components from Texas Instruments. The Minuteman III missiles used D-37D computers and completed the 1,000 missile deployment of this system. The initial cost of these computers ranged from about $139,000, D-37C, to $250,000, D-17B. Minuteman II, LGM-30F. The LGM-30F Minuteman II was an improved version of the Minuteman I missile. Development on the Minuteman II began in 1962 as the Minuteman I entered the Strategic Air Command's nuclear force. Minuteman II production and deployment began in 1965 and completed in 1967. It had an increased range, greater throw weight and guidance system with better azimuthal coverage, providing military planners with better accuracy and a wider range of targets. Some missiles also carried penetration aids, allowing higher probability of kill against Moscow's anti-ballistic missile system. The payload consisted of a single Mk-11C reentry vehicle containing a W-56 nuclear warhead with a yield of 1.2 megatons of TNT, 5 pj. The major new features provided by Minuteman II were an improved first-stage motor to increase reliability, a novel, single, fixed nozzle with liquid injection thrust vector control on a larger second-stage motor to increase missile range. Additional motor improvements to increase reliability. An improved guidance system, D-37, incorporating microchips and miniaturized discrete electronic parts. Minuteman II was the first program to make a major commitment to these new devices. Their use made possible multiple target selection, greater accuracy and reliability, a reduction in the overall size and weight of the guidance system, and an increase in the survivability of the guidance system in a nuclear environment. The guidance system contained 2,000 microchips made by Texas Instruments. A penetration aids system to camouflage the warhead during its re-entry into an enemy environment. In addition, the Mk-11C re-entry vehicle incorporated stealth features to reduce its radar signature and make it more difficult to distinguish from decoys. The Mk-11C was no longer made of titanium for this and other reasons. A larger warhead in the re-entry vehicle to increase kill probability. System modernization was concentrated on launch facilities and command and control facilities. This provided decreased reaction time and increased survivability when under nuclear attack. Final changes to the system were performed to increase compatibility with the expected LGM-118A Peacekeeper. These newer missiles were later deployed into modified Minuteman silos. The Minuteman II program was the first mass-produced system to use a computer constructed from integrated circuits, the Autonetics D-37C. The Minuteman II integrated circuits were diode transistor logic and diode logic made by Texas Instruments. The other major customer of early integrated circuits was the Apollo guidance computer, which had similar weight and ruggedness constraints. The Apollo integrated circuits were resistor transistor logic made by Fairchild Semiconductor. The Minuteman II flight computer continued to use rotating magnetic disks for primary storage. The Minuteman II included diodes by Micro Semiconductor. Minuteman III, LGM-30G. The LGM-30G Minuteman III program started in 1966, and included several improvements over the previous versions. It was first deployed in 1970. Most modifications related to the final stage and re-entry system, ARS. The final, third, stage was improved with a new fluid-injected motor, giving finer control than the previous 4-nozzle system. Performance improvements realized in Minuteman III include increased flexibility in re-entry vehicle, RV, and penetration aids deployment, increased survivability after a nuclear attack, and increased payload capacity. The missile retains a gimbaled inertial guidance system. Minuteman III originally contained the following distinguishing features. Armed with W62 warhead, having a yield of only 170 kilotons TNT, instead of previous W56's yield of 1.2 megatons. It was the first multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles, MIRV, missile. A single missile was then able to target 3 separate locations. This was an improvement from the Minuteman I and Minuteman II models, which were only able to carry one large warhead. An ARS capable of deploying, in addition to the warheads, penetration aids such as chaff and decoys. Minuteman III introduced in the post-boost stage, BUS, an additional liquid fuel propulsion system rocket engine, PSRE, that is used to slightly adjust the trajectory. This enables it to dispense decoys or with MIRV dispense individual RVs to separate targets. For the PSRE it uses the bipropellant Rocketdyne Rs-14 engine. The Hercules M57 third stage of Minuteman I and Minuteman II had thrust termination ports on the sides. These ports, when opened by detonation of shaped charges, reduced the chamber pressure so abruptly that the interior flame was blown out. This allowed a precisely timed termination of thrust for targeting accuracy. The larger Minuteman III third stage motor also has thrust termination ports, although the final velocity is determined by PSRE. A fixed nozzle with a liquid injection thrust vector control (TVC) system on the new third stage motor, similar to the second stage Minuteman II nozzle, additionally increased range. A flight computer, Autonetics D37D, with larger disk memory and enhanced capability. A Honeywell HDC 701 flight computer which employed non-destructive readout, NDRO, plated wire memory instead of rotating magnetic disk for primary storage was developed as a backup for the D37D, but was never adopted. The Guidance Replacement Program, GRP, initiated in 1993, replaced the disk-based D37D flight computer with a new one that uses radiation-resistant semiconductor RAM. The existing Minuteman III missiles have been further improved over the decades in service, with more than $7 billion spent in the last decade to upgrade the 450 missiles. W78 warhead. In December 1979 the higher-yield W78 warhead began replacing a number of the W62s deployed on the Minuteman IIIs. These were delivered in the Mark I-2A reentry vehicle. A small, unknown number of the previous Mark 12 RVs were retained operationally, however, to maintain a capability to attack more distant targets in the South Central Asia.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.